What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to Around the Burgh. We're here to recap the Steelers' Week 15 defeat of the Tennessee Titans in a 19-13 game. I'll introduce my co-host, Shayne Kubis. Shayne, how you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing all right considering we won, but as we'll talk about with some of the questions we'll go over, I'm not feeling great about the way we won. Basically, we'll talk more about that.
Right. We always say a win is a win is a win, but
Yep.
there's a lot to talk about, especially with where this team is going and where do
Yeah.
we want them to go. So the structure of the show is gonna be a little different than it has been for most of the season because I did not see this game, or aside from a few drives early in the game and the final play, thanks to a very kind man who had the NFL games on his phone, so I could
Mm-hmm.
watch the final play live, which was cool because I was busy doing family stuff.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask Shayne a series of questions about what happened in the game, and then we'll kind of just talk about them, and that's how we'll discuss what happened on Sunday. So the first question is: should you ever interact with an opponent's logo when you are the away team?
As Steelers fans know, from our incident with it last year with Juju, there's really the only upside to this is that if you win, you get to clown them even more, right?
Like a little
Like
bit, but like
a little
also
bit,
it's
but it's
yeah.
not. But again, that's my point. Is like that's the only benefit of doing it, right? Is that you get to talk more crap after the game than you already would have anyway because you did that to them and you still beat them.
Mhm.
But there's no precedent for this being a good idea. There's
No.
literally every time it's ever been a story, it's like, oh, that team got beat or something,
Mhm.
whatever, something doesn't go right. And I just wish it stopped happening because it's
Mhm.
just something that it seems like it continues to happen every year for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, and
Right.
again, the juice is just not worth the squeeze with that. Like
Right, it's not.
the amount of clowning that you get to do after essentially beating a team on the road and doing something with their logo is not worth the you getting clowned.
Right,
Because
exactly.
it was probably like NFL memes. Something posted the picture of all of them with the crying Jordans over their faces.
Yeah, it's
It
just
was
not
kind of
worth it.
it was disappointing to see. It seemed like Bud Dupree was the primary instigator of this, which he should know better.
I just don't understand with that. Like you said, with it being him. Like, first of all, other than like I guess him wanting us to pay him all that freaking money, he's upset about something. It's like
I don't think he's upset because he did take like a post game picture with
right.
TJ and Cam and Keith Butler.
I just don't get it. Like it just
Yeah,
doesn't. I mean, I just hope it stops happening.
it just never goes well.
It doesn't.
All right, so my next question is: did the Steelers do the Steeler thing? Which, with more context, is did they suck in the first half and then somehow come back in the second, make it interesting, and eventually win the game?
Especially on offense, yes. So this has
Yeah.
been as you talked about. Like this has been a consistent thing for several weeks now, where we do absolutely nothing, usually on
Hmm.
both sides of the ball, but at least definitely not on offense
Hmm.
for the entire first half, and then like somewhere between like the last 5 minutes of the third quarter to the end of the game, we just figure something out and it works, right? And this is definitely the case, especially with the offense. So the offense wasn't as good in the second half as it had been in the previous 3 or 4 games, but
Okay.
they
Yeah.
did enough with a lot of help from the Titans, which we'll talk a little bit more about later,
Hmm.
to get it done. There was definitely a lot of still disappointing drives and just not the yardage. You just look at the stats this game; it just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense how anybody scored 10 points, let alone
Yeah,
32
the team
total.
stats for the Steelers are pretty foul. And then the drive chart is also quite foul,
Mhm.
especially in the first half. I'm seeing punt,
Jeez.
punt, 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 field goal, and missed field goal, which I had to look at that. I was like, that's interesting, but missing from
Yeah,
56
56 on a cold night. It
on a
wasn't.
cold afternoon in
Yeah,
Hines in
cold afternoon. Yeah.
in late December. Maybe Justin Tucker gets that, maybe. So
There's just not many guys with a leg
no,
to do that with it.
no.
Just yeah,
And like
because there's a leg thing.
Boswell has changed the game in terms
He
of like
has.
kicking 50 yarders in Hines, but I'll give him 56. Like aside from Denver, like nobody's making 56 and aside from kickers in Denver and Justin Tucker, nobody's making 56 yarders with consistency. So
No,
I'll
it's
give him a
not.
pass with that one. But with regards to the rest of it, I mean, second half, punt, touchdown, field goal, field goal, field goal, end of game. So yeah, I mean better, but after all those turnovers, a lot of short fields and
Exactly.
couldn't get
Yeah.
in the end zone, which I think that's going to come in one of my later questions. But my next one is why couldn't the Steelers run the ball?
Well, we're facing the number 2 run defense in football
Right,
as far as pure yardage
yardage,
goes,
yeah.
and you could tell that just we don't have the guys up front to deal with Simmons and even their rookie. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Jones, I think Naquan Jones.
Oh no, he's been around a while.
I know they said he was a rookie. I don't know if it's someone else. Daquan Jones is who I think you might be thinking of. Yeah, gotcha. But they were just too strong in the run game. Like there's just so many times where Najee did a couple of those, like probably should have just gotten ahead instead of messing around in the backfield. But for the most part, just a lot of bad run blocking, a lot of just missed blocks, just guys getting off their blocks too soon. Like just not much room for him to do anything. And sometimes he did try to bounce it out, and that's where we lost some yardage in some situations. Too.
Yeah, I see that it is Naquan Jones. I thought it was still Daquan Jones.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay,
him. Yeah.
so they've swapped out a consonant. That's cool.
That's about it, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think I saw him have a comment, and I wasn't sure if it was after this game specifically or during the media availability, where he said, I know that I really don't like to be bouncing all these runs outside. And that's something that I don't really want to be doing, but I kind of just have to at this point. And
right, that's the problem. There's so many times where he was trying to just find somewhere to actually go, but they're getting in the backfield so fast that he didn't have time to stretch it out to the outside. So
yeah, and he knows that he's like, listen, like I know that that's not what I want to be doing. That's not sustainable. So it's good to at least have he has the self-awareness to know, like, we can't just. And I think again, we'll come back to the offensive line later. But yeah, I mean, his stats just look abysmal. I think
they were bad. They're bad.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate. Then my next one is, did Matt Canada do Matt Canada things?
Yeah, well, so several people were talking about this during the game. We might be the worst running back screen team in the history of the sport. Like, some of the it was just disgusting. Like some of the play calls and like the designs of things. There's a third down fade route to Ray McLeod.
I saw that one.
And it wasn't particularly close. And I'm like, if you're going to run that play, maybe run it to literally, no offense to Ray, like he's been really good as a receiver this year when we've asked him to, but maybe run it to someone else at least, or just not on a third and relatively
third and short, 4, I believe it was.
Just run something past the sticks, guy. Like we don't have to get cute with this. Like we're not at a point where we can be doing stuff like that. And there's just no semblance of a deep passing game whatsoever.
Yeah, that was just like a Venn diagram of Matt Canada idiocy and Ben Roethlisberger dumb decision making, where it's like we have third and short and we can run a fade ball down the sideline to our shortest receiver in the red zone.
And we didn't even run it to the far side of the field, like where we had more room to give him time. Like I'm like, what are we? None of it made sense. Like I like the slot fade as a play.
Oh yeah, no, it's a
great
very,
play.
very good play.
But just the worst time to call it. And I'm like, Matt, please stop.
And again, I think there is something to be said for the deception of they're probably not going to run their third best receiver who's tiny on that route, but still it's just
there's still a reason why we don't do that.
Get the ball in the hands of your best player, in a position to succeed. So that's just more dumb things. Next one, can this offense only be fixed on the fly? And I'm asking that because it seems like, especially against the run, they struggled. They're starting to struggle more in pass blocking in recent weeks. And I'm wondering, they did win this game and they are still in the playoff race. Is there something you think that can be done to make this offensive line, competent? Return it to mediocre, perhaps?
We've played around with this in the past. Green is not a center.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a center long term. I don't know if you can really afford to make the switch at mid-season or this late in the season and expect it to be much better. But the only thing I could think of is fitting Banner in somehow. But again, there's really not a reason to put him in at this point. Core 4 has been mostly good, honestly. For
he's the least problematic of the guys out there.
And Moore, I think, needs the reps regardless. And I don't think Banner's not a left tackle. He's not going to be playing there. Unless you're going to swap some guys out in the interior, Trey Turner, he's not a player anymore.
He seems like a very up and down. There's some.
To me, he just doesn't have it as a player at this point. Him being a veteran presence, despite some kind of weird weird things during the season, that's fine and everything, but he's not getting it done. I don't really know if it's worth taking him out of the lineup just because obviously he is still a veteran player, but other than moving Green out of center and giving someone else a shot, which I'm not I don't even know if Finney's healthy at this point.
I think it would be Hassenauer getting back.
That's the problem, is the center options aren't going to be great no matter what. And the only benefit of moving Green now is maybe just to see if he is legitimately able to play better at guard, and then moving forward that's his position. But I don't know if it would really make the line better.
Yeah, I mean, some people are like, oh, like if you move a bad center to guard, then you just have a bad guard, and I think there is some evidence to that, but I do think just taking the mental aspect of that off his plate,
It
from
can't
just
hurt.
yeah, because I
It can't
think that
hurt.
is a big issue, and we saw that against the Vikings. So I
It
think
was, yeah.
at least giving him that offseason to transition away from center, and we're gonna talk rookies a little more in a little bit, but I really do think that them uh not taking Creed Humphrey in the second round and then not taking Quinn Meinerz in the third, that's gonna be a mistake that haunts them.
I think so too. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to our next question. Is Ben Rothsberg a dual threat quarterback? And I notice how I couldn't even say that with a straight face.
I think I'd be more of a dual threat quarterback right now than Ben, and like that's saying something because I'm heavier than him and not as tall as him. So you could just tell he tried to step up in the pocket at one point in this game, and it just looked bad, and then he walked into a sack because he could have just stayed where he was, but he tried to run up in the pocket for some reason, and it took him 15 minutes to get there, and then by that time the block was shed, and he ran right into the defensive lineman. So it obviously it's we're just joking around, but like he might be the least he has the least positive aspect of as a runner as a quarterback in the NFL right now by a lot. Like this is the fact that Brady is like so much better than him as an athlete at this point is hilarious to me because like first of all Brady was always an awful athlete from the get go, but he's somehow probably a better athlete than he was like 15 years ago.
Yep.
And Ben just has taken too many hits in his legs or like his knee injuries and everything else is caught up with him. We know that, but it's still painful to watch him try to run from anybody.
Yeah, and like I was thinking more along the lines of the sneaks, which
Yeah,
thank God we finally saw a sneak.
He somehow like almost didn't do it though twice, which is hilarious to me. Like the first one, I honestly think he probably got in. I just you couldn't tell, unfortunately. Like they just couldn't call it. And then luckily the last one finally got in. But I'm like, if we can't score from the 1 yard line with a 250-pound quarterback and a 240-pound running back, then just put the backups in and let's play next year. Like I don't want to watch this.
Yeah, I mean, people have been saying that for like years because this is like the first Ben sneak I said they've run
3 years
in 3 years. Yeah, so that's
first rushing touchdown at least. In 3
okay.
years.
Okay,
I think the last one might have been. Remember that weird end of game play against the Jaguars like 3 years ago?
Oh yeah.
Where he like
that was in
did like a weird they were like a
Yeah.
weird read option sort of thing.
I remember that.
That probably was the last rushing touchdown he had.
Yeah, they ran like
that.
shovel option with
It was weird.
with Vance McDonald. What a wild time.
Yeah, so that was probably the last one before.
Yeah,
that,
but so this I guess is I don't have this one down, but like in terms of the passing offense with Ben, like this was definitely his after like a bunch of games where he looked awesome.
Yeah,
it seemed like it was just not there this week. So like where do you think that kind of originated from, and you do think it'll be a problem moving forward?
Honestly, I think the coverage was really good most of the day. Like it wasn't like there wasn't a ton of like missed opportunities, or at least that I could see. Like not many guys just wide open just didn't hit him. Like they just weren't giving him a lot of chances, and like the pass rush was definitely pretty good compared to what Tennessee's been putting up beforehand. Like Landry gave Moore definitely some trouble at times. Dupree made a big play actually at one point, unfortunately for us. So in general, he didn't have a lot of time to work with. He just didn't have the ball a lot until even later in the game. Like we got all those turnovers, but a lot of just quick drives, like play calling wasn't there. Like I talked about before.
Yeah. The team stats are so wonky because like the Titans ran 78 plays, the Steelers ran 45.
Right.
And the Steelers actually had 12 drives, which is he makes it even worse.
That's what I'm saying. Like there's not a lot of like they were either getting short drive opportunities, but they weren't getting any first downs on them. So like the 4 turnovers, they got 12 points on 4 turnovers. Right.
And somehow the Steelers still had more yards passing, more yards per pass. Than the Titans, which
Tannehill had a rough day. I mean, a lot of it was just us just playing way better than their receiving core was playing, but like he did have he had a guy drop what could have been easily like a 50-yard pass early in the game. That Westbrook, that guy, he had 0 drops coming into the game, and he dropped his first deep ball.
Nice.
So we got lucky a couple of times. For the most part, Tannehill just didn't have any chance to do it.
Gotcha. Okay, so move on to our next question: is Pat Freiermuth the best rookie on this team?
Right now, I think he's been the most efficient rookie, right? Like he's done the best with what he's been given.
Is he playing the best? Let's say that.
I would say like it's hard with Harris, right? Because we see the talent level with him, but the offensive line hurts him so bad, and it's kind
Mhm,
of, you could tell it's bleeding into like his tendencies and like what he's trying to do.
mhm.
So honestly, like especially the last few weeks where the running game still hasn't really been there very much and the offensive line has regressed, I would say yes, he's been the best rookie, especially right now.
Yeah, and it seems like he got a concussion, which I think he's gonna be okay long term, just,
Hopefully, yeah. It was
yeah.
pretty ugly whenever it happened. I was worried about him for sure.
Yeah, and I think he was, a big part of this passing offense, especially like converting first downs. So yeah, I mean, Ben seems to love him, and whoever the next quarterback is will essentially love him as
Oh, I'm
well.
sure they
So
will. Yeah,
I like we
he'll be a
did say,
big part.
he was, let's see, second on the team in targets,
Hmm.
second in catches, second in yards. How many first downs did he pick up? So 2 first downs on 4 catches. So yeah, a lot of important plays.
Yeah.
But I mean, we say that those second and third round picks were mistakes, but getting Fryermuth has obviously been very helpful for this offense.
Yeah, him especially is great. Like I, as much as I would love to have Humphrey right now, the fact that
Mhm.
we have him makes me not feel as bad about that. It's really the pick of Green and
Over
stuff like
Minerts,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's yeah. Speaking of bad rookies, is Presley Harvin the worst rookie on this team?
Yeah, I mean, just
That's
if you,
saying something.
especially like looking at it from where he stands in the NFL as a punter, it it's been rough for him. I mean,
Yeah, I
obviously
mean,
we found out recently like he has some family issues
mhm,
going on, and like,
yeah.
and that's also, that's, we don't know how much that might affect him, especially with a game that's as mental as punting and doing everything like that. But he's gonna have to either show a lot more down the stretch than he's shown in recent weeks,
Mhm.
or he's probably at the very least going to be in a competition with somebody next year.
Yeah, this is yeah. I mean, there were a lot of shanked punts out of bounds again. Average under 40 yards per punt,
Yeah,
30 yards net average. Which I know there was one big return,
yeah.
which I think I did see that play, and they called the Steelers for blocking the back, and I saw at least 2 Titans blocking the
Oh
back during the
yeah,
return. I was just like,
they just saw James Pierre first and said, "Forget about it. It's
yeah,
going to be on the Steelers."
yeah. Which I'm just like, okay, okay. So
We'll
we're gonna
see.
flip sides of the ball now with my questions. So why would any team throw the ball against this defense? And this is both a praise of the passing defense and an indictment on the running defense.
That's the thing, right? Is like when I was watching the game, especially because they weren't down big at any point. I mean, we got a 3-point lead and a 6-point lead late in the game, and that was it.
Hmm.
Like the game was either tied or the Titans had control of the game, and there was a lot of times where they could have just said, "You know what, we're running the football." Even the last drive that they had, they ran the football down the
Yeah,
field
say
for
they
most
finally
of that.
got the message where it's like, listen, you can
Right,
just
and
run,
I'm
guys.
like, and they just didn't go to it enough, and, like, I understand, like, to a certain extent, you have a bunch of backup running backs, although Foreman looked great, even though he got dinged up a couple times, he kept coming back in.
Listen, I
McNichols
picked him
had a
up.
great play.
I picked him up in fantasy this week and started him, and he did not disappoint. So
No,
I
he
was very
was, like I said,
happy.
he was really good, but, like, I don't know at this point, especially if you have a lead on them early, right?
Yep.
Until I would just say, if I was a coach going up against the Steelers, if I'm running the ball and it's working, which it is going to work, I'm going to make you stop us before we stop doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Like if we get stonewalled on like first down and like if I like a play call I have on second down as a pass, whatever. But if we get 4, 5, 6+ yards every carry, I'm just gonna keep doing that until you prove to me that you can stop it. Because
Yeah.
that's the best way to avoid some of, like, I mean, the way that Fitzpatrick has been playing, especially lately, the way, if he can stop having to be the one who tackles everybody every play,
Yeah.
because he's gonna break his body at the rate he's going.
Hmm.
But the way the secondaries played, especially with having Hayden back, was huge in this game. It was
Hmm.
awesome, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But there is no reason to have a game plan that involves passing the ball more than like 30% of the time going into the week. Like there's just
100.
no reason to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Like I don't understand like why any team wouldn't. I mean, and the thing is, like, every team seems to be able to succeed running the ball, regardless of who they have in the field. From a running back and a like offense personnel standpoint. Like I would just come out like an 11 personnel every play and be like, I know you need to put 9 in the box, stop this run, and you still can't do it. So I'm just going to keep doing that. And then,
Right?
like, on the off chance they do, then I'll be like, okay, then
Yeah.
I will hit you with the play action. And,
Exactly. Yeah.
or just keep running because it's not going to hold. Anyways, but yeah, it seems ridiculous. And I don't really know what they can do at this point. I mean, they got the Chiefs next week, which we'll get into later, but they still have the Bengals and the Ravens down the road. So it's just really difficult to see like what change they can make to overhaul how they're defending that aspect of the game. I'm going to flip a question here. Does Joe Hayden lift weights?
He most certainly lifts
Yes,
weights.
he does. He damn right he does.
That tackle like this is the reason why, like, as much we talked about whenever in the in the preseason, whenever they were talking about like he's not going to get an extension and stuff like that. Like, I understand he's an aging corner, and I understand that we can't expect him to continue to play at a starting caliber level forever. But this is the type of play that a veteran corner makes that none of the other guys we have probably make right now. Right,
Mm-hmm.
having somebody who can make this play to end the game, and it was even closer than, which we'll talk about one of your questions later. It was made closer than it had to be. It was clearly not a first down, but
Mm-hmm.
making a stop like that in that situation might earn him a chance to come back with us, depending on what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think his contract is up. He is an older
Yeah.
player, so we'll have to see about that. But I mean, yeah, I mean, for a guy who, he's again, like you said, he's up against Nick Westbrook-Akine, who's, 6'3", 215, Joe Hayden's 5'11", 195. And, Hayden played that perfectly, played the sticks and then just drove on it and it gave absolutely no ground to this guy. And, a few players earlier, multiple defenders kind of gave down to Foreman a first down on like 4th and 1
Mm-hmm.
by him just kind of out physicaling them. So that was awesome to see. And, it seemed like he made a huge impact getting back in the lineup. But speaking of defensive backs, is Ahkello Weatherspoon still riding his hot streak?
I think he had a really good game. I think that
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, like, he had a really nice pass breakup on Jones in the end zone at the end of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, that was probably his biggest play where he actually was the main defender. Definitely didn't notice any issues coming from him, and the whole pass defense was just pretty difficult to deal with. The only problem that they have is they were getting beat a lot of the time when they were running mostly zone. A lot of guys were finding
Okay.
holes in the zone,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like he wasn't getting beat in man coverage or he wasn't getting torched over, like, nothing like that. He did his job very well, I think.
Yeah, I'm seeing Julio Jones had 1 target and no catches, which is pretty
Yeah,
sick.
and the only target, he ended up going out with the hamstring again,
Mm-hmm.
but the only target he had was the red zone target, and Witherspoon ran it perfectly with him and just jumped in front of it and knocked it
Yeah,
off.
and then I'm seeing like almost all these targets went to running backs and tight ends. So
Yeah, they did not target. I mean, they were basically said they were just targeting tight ends in the middle of the field, running backs out of the backfield, which, of course, I tweeted at one point actually on the Steelers ATB account that I'm pretty sure the Steelers have never seen a running back in their whole lives. Like, they don't know what it is because they don't want to be anywhere near one, and they don't know what to do with it when they see one. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, boy. Okay, so next question. Try to explain to me how and why TJ Watt won't win Defensive Player of the Year, if you can.
So the first thing, obviously, is missing time. I think that's going to be the first argument you hear a lot. You're going to see people talk about how even though he has the statistics, a lot of it is hustle stuff. They're going to call him a hustle player, try to downplay that, even though that's a really important part of the game. Someone having a really hot streak at the end of the year, if TJ doesn't have quite the hottest streak, which he had a really good game this week, obviously, but if maybe he doesn't, get a couple extra sacks or he doesn't have a lot of numbers the rest of the way, a Garrett or, Donald's heated up recently, I could see if they do well enough statistically to get close to him, like close enough, that's when you'll start seeing, especially those first two arguments come out.
Yeah, I still don't. I still think he's pretty much in line to get this.
I think so too, but that's
Yeah.
what you'll hear when people are talking about someone else besides him.
Yeah, and partially I think because, and I almost think that missed time might help him, kind
It
of
could,
in
yeah.
that it's like, I think somebody has found out that like in games he plays all 4 quarters, Steelers are 7-0. In the games he doesn't, they're
It's such a
like
stupid stat.
0-3-1 or whatever.
So
Yeah, so
insane.
it's just like it's so clear that how he changes defense, and he makes impact plays in every game he's in. When he's now not getting injured, and I think a lot of it is kind of the same injury that's just he's been trying to fight through, and. I mean, he's, and, you say the thing about the hustle stats, and I think that that's important for, guys in a contract year or, you're looking for consistency, regardless of, that he is, consistently racking up, basically 1 sack a game years, or like every game. Like if you look at his average, like every year he's averaging at least 1 sack per game. I think because he did break the Steelers single season sack record.
Yep,
in
17 and a half. He's up to now.
Right. And in effectively 10 full games, this season. So I mean, and I think I was looking at the graphic the Steelers account posted, and I think he has 3 of the top 5 seasons in terms of sacks in Steelers history, which just past James Harris. And the other one in there is Mike Merriweather, I think, from the 80s, who I don't really know much about, to be honest. but yeah, I still think he's in line. This apparently Myles Garrett might have just gotten hurt in the Raiders-Browns game, which is taking place as we're recording.
Ooh, I didn't
And
see
apparently
that.
and in this game, the Browns just took the lead,
Of course they did.
14-13 with 3 minutes left. So the Raiders are driving. And I think that they should be able to pull this off against an extremely depleted Browns roster. We'll get into playoff implications later.
Right.
But with that in mind, who is the most important player on this defense in your mind?
Well, I mean, clearly it's TJ.
Okay.
Just from if you look at it from both numbers perspective, production, position importance, the fact that we're pretty much undefeated when he plays most of the game.
Mhm.
Like, it's just everything works better when he's on the field. The defense on the secondary plays better because he's getting more pressure on the quarterback. The rest of the defensive line plays better because they can get more one-on-ones. It all just kind of trickles down, right? It's just one of those things where you have a player that's as good as he is at his position. It just elevates everything else around him just kind of by default, just by him being there.
Another live update. Derek Carr has just thrown an interception to Greedy Williams with less than 3 minutes remaining.
The Raiders always do a good job of disappointing me. I mean, they just, no matter what, they find a way to make me upset. It doesn't even, like, Derek, this team's not good right now. Can you
that's pretty bad. But anyways, yes, that's probably gonna end that way. Yeah, I think that's probably the correct answer. I do think you can make an argument for Minkah because
that would be like him and Cam are both in that same.
Because like if Minkah isn't there and it's kind of just a regular safety, like this defense is giving up even more rushing yards.
Oh my God.
And I saw Minkah gave a really interesting quote. He said, because he was asked about having to make so many tackles, and he said that's something that I'm like not necessarily naturally good at, and something I've really had to work on. And he has had some things he addressed. He's like, I've had some issues with that in the past, and like I've really worked to getting better with that with my eyes, and just being more sound with that. So that's really cool to see. And I think he had an insane number of solo. He had 12 solo tackles, which again, if you're free, and
that's
he was
first.
He was first on the team. Edmonds was second, and that is a problem. But it is good to see at least they are making those tackles. But so
for sure.
Next question: did the officials suck?
Man, the officials not only did they suck in this game, they suck in general this week, especially. It seems like they always kind of suck just because it's NFL refs, and we kind of know that that's just kind of what they do for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But between like some of the penalty calls, even like the Titans have some gripes they could definitely take away from this game. Like especially the spot on the fourth down play to end the game.
Preposterous.
I'm if they would have given them that first down. I assume they would have
reviewed it
because it would be a turnover on down, so they would have reviewed it, and then they would have been like, "What are you talking about?" But the fact that it was even remotely close, that they would have had to go to the booth to be like, "Hey, listen, what happened?" I don't know what they saw. I don't know what.
It was pretty clear because they had the TV camera had a great angle, and basically, Westbrook-Ikhine would have needed to get to the 9.5-yard line.
Yeah,
and Hayden prevented him from basically getting to the 10. Like he barely got to the 11-yard line. So and then the ball was 2 chain links away from the first down, which again was at about the 9.5-yard line. I was just like, what are we doing here?
There's no way. Like it wouldn't have even been close.
Yeah, and then I saw
in general they suck. Yeah,
and then I saw stuff about there's a hit on Ben where he just got thrown after handing it off for basically no reason.
Yeah,
I think there was a low hit that did get called on him.
That's the thing, right? Is like you could argue the low hit could have been not called just because of the circumstances of it, but the hit they didn't call, it was the rookie Jones, the one I told you, Naquan Jones.
Yes.
It was like an RPO type of whatever it was, and he hands the ball, and there's like two or three full steps of him running towards him, and then he just goes boom, just right in his face, and I'm like, is that not constitute? Well, like what are we doing here? Like, I don't understand. It's just a lot of weird calls, a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah. Live update for a podcast that's coming out after the fact. It is now the 2-minute warning, and the Raiders did stop the Browns, so it is 4th and 3 from the Browns' own 30. So they will essentially have to punt it back to the Raiders again.
Well, I'm hoping Derek Carr does not disappoint me again.
Well,
they only need a field goal, right? So 14.
Correct.
13.
It's 14-13. So
I'll take any way to make sure the Browns don't have to be a problem for us.
Right. I think I could be wrong, but I think if they win this game, they're in first in the AFC North. Which is insanity.
I know that they would be at least tied with with Ravens and
I
Bengals
think
at
they
8 and
have the
6.
tiebreakers though.
I think they do so far, right?
Yeah. So okay, hang on. I do have the playoff machine pulled up.
I was gonna
So
say because I think that
yeah,
they'd either be first or, like I said, at least
if the
like.
Browns win, they are the fourth. They are first in the AFC North.
And their quarterback today is Nick
Nick
Mullins, by the
Mullins.
way, for all
Yeah.
those who know him for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't
Absolutely
believe that.
insane.
Whatever.
Especially like regardless of all their COVID stuff. Like insane that
That's
they
what I'm
are.
saying. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here,
Yeah.
Raiders?
All
Like,
right.
get a
Yeah.
win.
Okay, so
Whatever.
next question is: should any of the coordinators survive this season?
No, I
Okay,
don't think so. I think Butler's run his course for a lot of reasons. And
yeah,
Canada, to me, him being a promotion and getting already had worked with Ben, already knew a lot of these players. I know a lot of things change with offensive line and everything. I don't see the upside of letting him run it back. I just don't think he hasn't made
Did you
enough
mean? Do
good
you mean Canada?
decisions. Yeah, I'm talking.
Okay, you said Butler, and I was like a
Oh,
little
but well,
confused.
I meant
Right?
like yeah, in
Yeah.
Canada too. But yeah, Butler, like I said, ran his course. Canada, same like what I was talking about before. There's just no reason I think to hand him the keys to this offense, regardless of what we do to it. I
Mhm.
feel like it'd be better to bring in someone fresh. I haven't really looked too much into like who that might be or what we can do there, but I just don't see a reason to give him the chance to come back and make it work.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think Butler has. Again, I do understand this defense has been kind of racked by injuries, but it's. I mean, for the long time, the Steelers have not been like the biggest on like game plan, like changing their defense. It's kind of just been the same thing,
Yeah,
which I mean, and it has worked for the the better part of
yeah,
half a century. But it's just like you're not really adding anything to this, and when there are issues, you're not doing stuff to mitigate it because if you think about all the years where they didn't really have good secondary play, or they didn't have good middle linebacker play, or last year when there were a lot of injuries in the middle, and this year when there's a lot or in linebacker and there's a lot of injuries on the defensive line, he just doesn't make changes, and then the Steelers are kind of just up the creek without a paddle, if you will.
yeah.
So it's just like
They're just stuck in the same mold that
yeah.
they
So like
always have
we
been.
need like the Steelers need somebody who is able to make those changes and get them and kind of paper over those problems. And I don't think Butler's got to do that. I think I agree with everything you say about Canada. I think it's time for Danny Smith. This finding if he's the guy who like found Boswell some reason, then like good for him. But it's clear like he's not a big part of that.
No,
The punting game is atrocious. Maybe get a new guy in there to see if he can fix Harvin. I would say punt and kick coverage is decent. I think.
it hasn't really, at least in my, from what I believe, I don't think it's really shown up as a big problem most of the year. I think there's a couple games where the kickoffs were getting a little too, they're getting a little bit too many yards on some of them. But for the most part, it hasn't been like a big glaring issue or anything like that.
Yeah, and again, like they've never been. I mean, there hasn't really been a consistently good returner for this team. Ray McLeod has had moments, but there seem to be a lot more problems. Actually, now I do have these stats pulled up, so I am going to check on how they are. Oh yeah, so they are in the bottom 10 in both punt and kick returns against this season in terms of
Okay.
average. So they have not allowed a touchdown, which every other team in the top 10 has allowed at least one in either. So
I think it's more so,
props
yeah,
to
like you
them.
said. I think it's more like they give up too many yards on some kickoffs in
Yeah.
general. Like I think they consistently, like there's not many times where I've seen them really pin somebody down on a kickoff or pin
Yeah.
someone down on a punt. Like
Yeah. They're allowing
yeah,
clean 10 to punts and 24.3 for kicks.
yeah,
So,
24 point,
it's just
yeah.
like, and, he's just, the dude's like, patrolling the sideline, chomping on his gum, and it's just like I think they can really do better
Yeah, I'm
there.
sure we can. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so that's the coordinators. Next question: is this method of play sustainable for the Steelers? And
Of course
there's a
not.
lot I mean by that. I think my biggest one is like this defense is pretty much surviving on splash plays, both against the pass, and against the run a little bit. But they are pretty much getting gassed against the run. That's kind of just how they're going to live, it seems, this season. Can they sustain that on defense and whatever this offense is, even when it's at its quote best, where it sucks in the first half and comes back in the second half? Is this method of success sustainable for the next 3 games?
I don't think so. I think that being as bad as we are against the run, it's going to eventually get to a point where it's just not able to work because teams are going to just stop
Mm-hmm.
giving us a chance to make big plays by throwing the
Mm-hmm.
ball. Because that's the only way we have to make big plays at this point is to have the quarterback have the ball in his hands and make a mistake or somebody make a big play or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
Especially considering the way Watt is still playing and Hayward and all those guys, teams are going to stop stop giving them chances to make game-changing plays eventually.
Mhm.
Whether the Chiefs do that or not next week, I don't know. I mean, their run game is really inconsistent, so I don't know if they're going to lean on it too much. But if they do, I do think it's going to work, as we found out. I just think that they're going to be able to run the ball on us if they want to. And then we have to hope that Mahomes gives us a couple, which he is prone to do, but still, they're
Yeah, I
probably
mean,
going to try to just play a clean game and get out of there.
yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are pretty much firing on all cylinders right now, to be
Yeah,
honest.
true.
At least relative to how they were early in the season. All right, live update. There are now 4 seconds left in the game. The Raiders have the ball at the Cleveland 30, and they're attempting a 48-yard field goal with 4 seconds left to win the game. Which
Well,
Daniel Carson's a good kicker.
he has
I
been.
don't.
Yeah.
It looks like it was cold in Cleveland, but not necessarily windy. But
Right.
that lake is, treacherous. So,
Oh, yeah.
just ask the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's a deep cut for people who get it. Okay. Next question: can the Steelers make the playoffs?
They can.
Will they?
So will they? I'm gonna say no. I
Okay.
think that we don't. I feel like the only way we can guarantee we get in is obviously to win these next 3 games. I think we're gonna lose at least one of them, whether it's the Chiefs
Yeah.
game or a game after that. There's a really good chance we lose 2 of them, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what the Ravens look like in Week 18, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hard because I think we could get in even with 2 wins. I think it's possible, but the
It is.
AFC is so congested at the bottom that I don't know who all is even going to have the chance to make the playoffs. Like we could win 2 of these next 3 games, and someone is able to make it in just on different tiebreakers and bull crap like that. Like it's just a mess in the AFC. So I think at this point I'd say no.
All right. Raiders kick a game-winning field goal. The Raiders have won. Cleveland loses.
That
So
helps, but
that's one positive domino for the
right.
Steelers. And it was very annoying having to root for the Patriots for 1 week, and then they decided to stink against the Colts, because the Colts getting into this playoff picture is really kind of the one that dooms the Steelers, because they're kind of one of the few teams that are in this wild card hunt the Steelers don't really have a head-to-head win against.
Yep.
So that is not good. But the Steelers, they do. I think basically to get in the playoffs, they are going to have to win the division.
Pretty much.
So,
That's what it probably comes down to.
A loss to the Chiefs is not catastrophic. They
No.
will then have to beat the Browns and the Ravens. Browns at home on Monday night, Ben's last home game on Tom on Monday nights. Do feel good about that. Having to win on the road against the Ravens when they are also fighting for their playoff lives in Week 18, that's much more concerning for me.
Definitely not easy to get in at this point.
Okay, so next question is, let's say that happens. Can the Steelers win a playoff game?
I just think it comes down to who we play, right? Like I think that most of the AFC playoff field is definitely very beatable on any
Mhm.
given day. Like the Chiefs, especially, are the only team lately that feels like, because they've hit all the rights, like you said, they've kind of hitting on all cylinders. If they are playing like they have been playing and they're playing more like we expected them to, then I think they're a cut above the rest of the teams.
Mhm.
But we just beat the Titans. Now, granted, they have a lot of injury issues, like a lot of teams do. We've beaten
Yeah, I
the
mean,
Ravens this year.
it is funny because I think we mentioned this last week that, they had those bad games, then they kind of had a get right game against the Jaguars, and then they were bad against Steelers. So I think that the Jaguars game is more of an aberration than an example, if you will.
Oh yeah, for sure. But again, like the whole AFC, like there's really nobody that has from beginning to end shown that they are the best team in the conference, or even one of the best teams in the conference. There's been a lot of flip flopping. The Patriots had their long streak that got them back into things, and I think that almost every team is pretty beatable in any week. I think that our best matchup would be one of the division opponents, just because we know them already. We'll have played them twice. I know that didn't work out last year, but this is a different situation than what we were facing last year. But I think the team I wouldn't want to see again is the Chargers for sure.
Mhm.
If they made it for sure, I wouldn't want to see them. I wouldn't want to see the Chiefs. Obviously, we'll see how we look against them, but still, I wouldn't want to see them. Just not a lot of good matchups, but I think that we could win one if we get the right one.
Yeah, I'm going to try to kind of loading up the playoff machine right now to see, like, basically if everything kind of breaks the
The
Steelers'
Steelers way,
way
yeah.
to the point where they would be a 4 seed. and so they would be hosting the playoff game, which, that is a positive for them, especially with the game being in, early January. That's helpful. But it does seem, because then they would obviously play the 5th seed, and that's probably going to be the Chargers. So, they would face them again. But again, the cold weather might help a little bit.
It might, yeah. But...
yeah. So next question is, how badly are the Chiefs going to kill the Steelers this week? The line is 10.
I think if the Chiefs commit to running the football, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they come out and they say, we're going to do against this team what everyone knows that we can do against this team and not get cute with it, this is a game that they know that if they play their cards right and they don't do anything that they don't need to do, they can win the game pretty easily, right? They know that. So if they keep the ball on the ground and they let Mahomes make plays when he has to, but outside of that, they kind of try to play a fairly simple game plan on offense and don't let the Steelers do any of their fourth quarter magic on offense, on the offense side of the ball, they could easily blow us out, to be honest with you. This is a game that's very treacherous for us because the Chiefs are able to beat you in multiple ways on offense now that the running game is a little bit better, especially against us. It's not going to matter if their running game is good or not anyway.
Yeah.
But with Mahomes heating up with, now Kelsey, he did get into COVID protocols.
Yep, I was going to mention that.
I don't know what the odds are that he actually will miss this game, but if he misses, that's huge. But
yeah, that'd be very helpful because they did say that he is vaccinated, so the protocols will be more favorable towards him.
Exactly.
If he can test negative and be asymptomatic multiple times. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can find if the spread has changed. I can't imagine that it has.
Probably not, because there's no indication whether he's actually going to play or not. So
right, why is this not here? What the heck? Why can't I find the spread? It's literally not on the. That's okay. That's odd. It is just not on the sportsbook that I use. Which is very strange. That's very odd. Is this the right week? Yeah, this is the right week. Huh, that's very strange. But yeah, I mean, I think if I can still get the Chiefs at 10, I'll take them before it gets up to 12 or anything.
Yeah, I just feel like if I was making a bet and the bet is going to be, if they're going to be given 10 points, like it's hard. Like the Steelers haven't had too many like big losses overall. So like I can see them making it close at the end like they always do recently.
Maybe.
But it's still it's a hard task keeping this team under 30 points at this point. And I think that if they get to 30 points, they're going to win by 10.
Yeah,
like, I don't see.
Yeah, and the Chiefs defense is playing super well right now.
They have, yeah.
And that's like a defense that is pretty primed to, kind of take advantage of Ben Rothsberger's, poor arm. Like they've got turnover seeking defensive backs, and I shudder at the thought of Chris Jones
I don't even
taking on Kendrick Green.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's going to be ugly. But
I got -9.5 right now.
Okay.
Chiefs, so maybe they.
I would say hammer that as hard as you can right now.
I probably unfortunately will be doing that, but we'll see.
yeah. Most of my bets are tied up in bowl games at this time of year. So we're 1-1 so far. This is why I don't like Mormons. Moving on.
There you
go. But that'll do it for this week. I think we got through all my questions, and it's obviously exciting. The Steelers did win this game to keep their hopes alive, but
yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like it, but we are excited about it.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of especially the turnover issues where we were getting 4 turnovers, we couldn't get any points out.
No, was ridiculous.
When you're averaging 3 points per turnover, that's not ideal.
No.
It just isn't. Our only touchdown being on a non-turnover drive is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, how in the world did you manage to...
And all of those drives got gave the Steelers a short field, and they couldn't even get a first down.
Right. There was even the field goals were not gimme field goals.
Mm-hmm.
Boswell had to be himself.
I saw it seemed like a lot of drives started off with a sack or a holding penalty. So that's
just about pretty much.
Yeah. So that's again, I think they're doing that a lot more, and that's really not good. But it is kind of just ridiculous to root for this team, which is it's kind of fun to be like, oh my god, what stupid thing are they going to do this week? And they do always find ways to surprise us, which is exciting.
They do, yeah. Which is fun.
But we'll be back later this week with our preview of the aforementioned Chiefs game. In the meantime, Shayne, let people know where they can find you and your work. And you've been talking about this piece a lot, and I know you're finally getting around to it's going to come out this week, which is exciting. So let the people know where they can find that.
Yep, you can find me at Shayne Kubis on Twitter, and then at the Steelers ATB account as well, which I will be posting on my actual Twitter and then the Steelers Twitter. There should be an article coming out hopefully tomorrow about the fact that this likely is the end of this era of Steelers football with Ben Roethlisberger as a starting quarterback. I know there's been a lot of conversation around that, and you kind of get to see what my take is on it, and more so just kind of talking about what this era has meant to myself and fans, and just kind of looking forward to the future at this point.
Yep, absolutely. And again, please check this piece out. I think it's going to be a really great thing. And like we've talked a lot about Ben, and I think this is going to be a very interesting kind of post. Trying to think of, I don't really know what I'm saying, but it's gonna be a very interesting look back at Ben's career.
Yep,
I
exactly.
tend to try to like find big words to say, and then
Yeah,
sometimes I just kind of get lost in the sauce.
you're good. It's all right.
But you follow me at Mitchell T Wolf WOLFE on Twitter, and like Shane said, follow Steelers ATB, follow Around the Block on
Yep.
Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all that stuff. Like I said, we'll be back later this week, and we hope to have you back on our next episode.